July 25, 1944. 9:38 a.m. Normandy, France. Lieutenant General Fritz Bayerlein, commander of the renowned Panzer Lehr Division, paces in his fortified command post, his eyes fixed on a ticking stopwatch. 6 grueling weeks have passed since the Allied forces stormed the beaches on D-Day. His unit, hailed as the Wehrmacht's pinnacle of armored training and might, clings tenaciously to its defensive lines. The relentless American artillery, which has pounded their positions without mercy for days, suddenly falls eerily quiet. An unnatural hush blankets the battlefield. It's too calm, too ominous. In mere moments, Bayerlein will grasp the horrifying truth. This silence is the prelude to an unprecedented cataclysm, a force that will redefine destruction itself. But before we unravel this pivotal chapter of history, let's clarify one undeniable fact. What unfolded in the ensuing minutes transcended a mere shelling or assault. It was the calculated obliteration of a formidable force. It embodied the fusion of scientific precision and mass production turned against human endeavor. It marked the instant when age-old German military prowess, forged through centuries of strategy, unyielding discipline, and superior engineering, crashed headlong into an unstoppable American innovation that defied comprehension. How does an elite division vanish in effectiveness within hours? How does a verdant landscape morph into a barren wasteland in the blink of an eye? How do battle-hardened survivors of epic sieges like Stalingrad find their resolve shattered irreparably? Today, we embark on more than a recounting of combat. We're dissecting the anatomy of the most revolutionary artillery tactic ever devised. This is the chronicle of the time-on-target method, the orchestrated symphony of devastation. And this is the unyielding judgment that American ingenuity imposed upon the Axis powers. Nail 1, the arrogance of supremacy, or how the mightiest force became oblivious. To fathom why Bayerlein and his troops were inexorably fated, we must rewind several years and pinpoint a critical oversight that sealed their destiny. By 1944, the German military remained the epitome of professional warfare on Earth. They pioneered blitzkrieg, conquering France in a swift 6 weeks and advancing to Moscow's gates. Their doctrines, forged in Prussian rigor, set the benchmark for tactical excellence. Yet herein lay the fatal flaw: dominance breeds complacency. Victory fosters the illusion of omniscience. German artillery tactics, honed over generations, emphasized Schwerpunkt, focusing overwhelming fire at breakthrough points with rapid, accurate volleys and seamless observer battery synergy. These methods triumphed in Poland, France, and the vast Russian steppes. When initial intelligence trickled in about U.S. artillery experiments in North Africa, German high command dismissed them outright. Consider the Kasserine Pass debacle in February 1943. American guns faltered due to disjointed coordination, allowing Rommel's Afrika Korps to rout them decisively. German analysts smugly concluded that the Yanks were novices armed with abundance but lacking finesse. This misjudgment wasn't a nail in America's coffin, it hammered the first into Germany's hubris. For while the Germans reveled in their win, the United States excelled in a domain they undervalued: relentless adaptation and the application of industrial efficiency to conflict resolution. Nail 2. The Forge of Doom, 4 breakthroughs that reshaped warfare. As Germans toasted their North African success, a transformative evolution brewed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. From the 1930s onward, visionary officers like Majors Carlos Brewer and Orlando Ward posed a deceptively profound query. What if artillery ceased being isolated units and evolved into an integrated network? This shift, though straightforward in concept, revolutionized the battlefield. Breakthrough 1, the Fire Direction Center, FDC. Envision not a lone spotter with a map and field glasses, but a sophisticated nerve hub staffed by experts wielding firing charts, slide rules, and plotting instruments. This setup computed trajectories for myriad batteries concurrently. In contrast, German forward observers liaised with limited guns. An American counterpart could summon corps-wide barrages. Breakthrough 2. Unbreakable communications. The U.S. forces obsessed over laying telephone cables. A single division might spool out 3,000 miles in a combat month, complemented by robust SCR, 610 radios boasting 5-mile ranges. Layers of backups ensured continuity. German lines, prone to disruption from weather or sabotage, often left commanders isolated. Breakthrough 3. Uniformity in production. Every American 105mm round from Detroit mirrored those from Seattle in ballistics. Howitzers shared identical specs. By late war, German munitions, churned out in scattered facilities using forced labor, suffered inconsistencies, up to 50% failure rates in some lots, necessitating constant readjustments. Americans achieved pinpoint accuracy without such hassles. Breakthrough 4. The essence of time on target, TOT. Imagine batteries scattered 3 to 15 miles from a mark. A 105mm projectile arcs for 20 seconds. A distant 155mm takes 35. By sequencing fire commands inversely, farthest first, all ordnance converges on the objective within a single heartbeat. Not staggered over minutes, but synchronized to perfection. Nail 3. The calculus of catastrophe, why synchronization alters fate. Delve into the human element. Post-war analyses, including 1950s U.S. Army studies on soldier responses to fire, revealed stark insights. Upon the initial blast, 60% of troops stand exposed, 30% seek partial shelter, 10% drop flat. Within 3 seconds, exposure halves as instincts kick in. By 10 seconds, nearly all are hunkered down. Conventional barrages thus serve as alerts. The opening salvos prompt evasion, diminishing subsequent impacts. TOT eradicates this grace period. There's no inaugural warning shot, only a unified apocalypse. With over half the force upright, lethality surges exponentially. Traditional methods see effectiveness plummet 70% post-onset. TOT inflicts maximum toll instantaneously, turning preparation into irrelevance. Nail 4. Operation Cobra. The day the sky and earth conspired to erase an army. July 25, 1944. The stage was set for one of the most meticulously planned acts of destruction in military history. General Omar Bradley had assembled the largest concentration of American artillery ever fielded in the European theater. Over 1,100 tubes, ranging from nimble 105mm howitzers to the thunderous 240mm Black Dragon monsters. 7th Corps alone controlled 522 guns. Ammunition stockpiles reached staggering levels, 140,000 rounds earmarked for the opening phase, with another 27,000 held in immediate reserve. The target zone was compact and lethal, a rectangle roughly 4 miles wide by 1.5 miles deep, straddling the St. Lo, Purriers Road. Inside that killing box sat the bulk of Panzer Lehr Division, together with elements of the 5th Parachute Division. Approximately 5,000 battle-hardened men dug into fortified positions, orchards, hedgerows, and small villages. The sequence began at first light with strategic bombing. Nearly 1,500 heavy bombers, B-17s and B-24s, streamed overhead in relentless waves, releasing more than 3,300 tons of high explosive and 60,000 incendiary bombs across a 12-kilometer front. The density was apocalyptic. Roughly 5,000 bombs per square kilometer. Roads vanished. Tree lines disappeared. Entire hamlets were erased into smoking craters. Then, at precisely 9:38, the artillery spoke as one. The time on target barrage arrived without preamble. Hundreds of shells, some traveling 20 seconds, others 35, landed within the same 2-second window. Observers later described it as if the sky had suddenly vomited steel. Craters overlapped so tightly that the ground appeared to boil. Communication trenches collapsed. Command posts were buried. Tanks were flipped onto their backs or simply swallowed by the earth. Forward observers reported that the entire target area transformed into something resembling the surface of the moon in under 90 seconds. Bayerlein himself, one of the few senior officers to survive relatively intact, later wrote of the moment. The bombers came in endless succession, then the artillery struck like a single blow from a giant hammer. Positions were obliterated. Men were thrown into the air. The shock was beyond description. Several of my soldiers lost their minds completely and ran blindly into the open until shrapnel found them. By early afternoon, the division that had entered the battle with roughly 2,200 combat-effective infantrymen and 45 operational armored vehicles, was functionally annihilated as a cohesive fighting formation. Bayerlein's after-action report was brutally concise. The Panzer Lehr Division no longer existed. Over 70% of its personnel were dead, seriously wounded, shell-shocked to the point of incapacitation, or driven into complete psychological collapse. What remained scattered into small, leaderless groups that would be mopped up in the following days. A single synchronized artillery strike, built on years of quiet American staff work and industrial output, had accomplished what entire Soviet armies sometimes failed to do against the same formation on the Eastern Front. Nail 5. Mortain, when time on target became a shield. Barely 2 weeks later, on August 7, Hitler personally ordered Operation Luttich, the last great German armored counteroffensive in Normandy. 4 panzer divisions, including the elite 1st SS Panzer Leibstandard and 2nd SS Das Reich, were to slice through American lines toward Avranches and cut off Patton's Third Army. If successful, the entire Allied breakout could be reversed. The plan looked promising on paper. Then it met American artillery observers perched on Hill 317 overlooking Mortain. From that single vantage point, Lieutenants Charles Bartz and Robert Weiss, equipped with maps, binoculars, and a reliable SCR-300 radio, could see every German approach route. As soon as panzer columns began rolling, they began calling fire. The 30th Infantry Division's artillery executed up to 20 separate time-on-target missions during the night and following day. 7 battalions, hundreds of guns, hammered pre-registered coordinates with devastating precision. German survivors spoke of walls of red steel, erupting without warning, of entire companies disappearing in flashes of light and earth. Assembly areas became charnel houses. Tank columns stalled in burning wrecks. Command vehicles vanished in flame. By morning the counteroffensive had bled out. Field Marshal von Kluge informed Hitler that further advance was impossible against such overwhelming and instantaneous fire superiority. 700 American soldiers, half of whom became casualties defending the hill, had stopped 4 panzer divisions cold. Not through superior bravery or marksmanship, but because they possessed the communications and the system to summon instant, synchronized destruction from miles away. The Germans had no equivalent. Their artillery remained slow, decentralized, and vulnerable to counter-battery fire. The mathematics of coordination had become the decisive terrain. Nail 6. The Falaise Pocket, Corridor of Death. By mid-August, the German 7th Army and 5th Panzer Army found themselves encircled in the Falaise Argentin Pocket. The only escape route was a narrow, 12-mile-wide corridor near the town of Falaise. American forward observers occupied virtually every commanding height along that route. From August 17 onward, time-on-target missions struck the Falaise Argentin road at roughly 30-minute intervals during daylight. Each mission involved 10 to 15 batteries firing on precisely calculated data. The effect was mercilessly predictable. General Hans Eberbach, commanding what remained of Panzer Group West, later reported, "The curtain of fire was so continuous and dense that bringing up supplies or evacuating wounded became impossible. Any vehicle that moved was immediately targeted and destroyed." The road quickly earned the grim nickname, Corridor of Death. Burned-out trucks, overturned half-tracks, dead horses, and shattered guns created permanent traffic jams. Following columns were forced to halt in the open, turning them into stationary targets for the next synchronized salvo. Between August 17 and August 21, when the pocket finally closed, approximately 50,000 German soldiers were captured and another 10,000 killed. Artillery, above all the instantaneous, no-warning nature of time on target, was the principal killer. The pattern was now unmistakable. Whenever German forces attempted to concentrate, maneuver, or retreat in the open, American observers called down the synchronized hammer. Traditional German tactical brilliance, rapid movement, concentrated armor thrusts, aggressive counterattacks, could no longer function against an enemy that could turn any assembly area into a killing zone in under 60 seconds. The war in the West had become an industrial execution, and the Germans were the ones standing on the receiving end. Nail 7. The Ardennes, when even surprise could not outrun the system. December 16, 1944. Hitler's last desperate gamble in the West, the Ardennes Offensive, launched under fog and snow. German panzer spearheads achieved complete tactical surprise, punching through thinly held American lines. For the first few days it looked as though the map might be redrawn. Yet the deeper truth soon revealed itself. Surprise alone was no longer enough against an opponent armed with industrial-scale, synchronized firepower. By December 19, the weather began to clear just enough for American artillery to function at full capacity. Near Dinant, the lead elements of the 2nd SS Panzer Division, Das Reich, were caught crossing the Our the River in column. 8 American artillery battalions received the call, computed solutions in under 4 minutes, and executed a classic time-on-target mission. The entire leading battalion, roughly 700 men and dozens of vehicles, was virtually annihilated in 60 seconds. Wreckage blocked the crossing for hours. Further south, similar instantaneous concentrations shredded other armored thrusts attempting to concentrate or maneuver. A new American technological edge accelerated the carnage: the proximity (VT) fuse. Over 22 million of these tiny radar-triggered devices had been secretly manufactured since 1943. Instead of detonating on impact or at a preset time, VT shells exploded at the ideal height, 6 to 15 meters above ground, creating a lethal cone of shrapnel that shredded anything in the open. Foxholes, slit trenches, even the lee of a tank offered almost no protection. When VT fuses were layered into time-on-target salvos, lethality multiplied dramatically. German soldiers quickly learned the new reality. The moment artillery began, the safest place was inside the deepest concrete bunker. Many simply refused to leave cover during barrages, not from cowardice, but from cold calculation. Survival odds against a VT-enhanced TOT mission approached zero. General Patton later remarked in his diary that, "the funny little fuse decided the Battle of the Bulge." Time after time, German units that had broken through initial lines were halted, pinned, and systematically dismantled the instant they tried to mass or move in daylight. The offensive that began with such promise ground to a halt against an enemy that could turn any road, any forest clearing, any assembly area into an instant graveyard. Nail 8. The irreparable gap: why Germany could never catch up. German officers eventually understood the mathematics of time on target. They could perform the same flight time calculations on maps and firing tables. But understanding is not the same as execution. The gap was systemic, not tactical. American ammunition was produced to tolerances so tight that a shell made in one state performed identically to one made 3,000 miles away. German late-war production relied on dispersed factories, forced labor, and constant material shortages. Shells varied in weight, propellant charge, and ballistic performance, sometimes by as much as 10 to 15%. Every new lot required re-zeroing, destroying any hope of precise synchronization. American communications featured redundant landlines, multiple radio nets, and liaison officers embedded at every level. German radio traffic was routinely intercepted, jammed, or simply failed under artillery counter-battery fire and weather. When lines went down, German batteries often sat silent while American guns kept firing. Most critically, the United States trained thousands of fire direction specialists, plotters, and forward observers to a uniform standard in just a few years. Germany, despite its superb officer corps, never built a comparable mass of technicians capable of orchestrating corps-level fires in real time. The largest documented German attempt at anything resembling time on target came during Operation Nordwind in January 1945. 8 batteries, spread arrival times of roughly 12 seconds. The American standard was plus or minus 3 seconds. That difference, 9 seconds, was not a matter of skill. It was the difference between a warning and an execution. Nail 9. The breaking of minds, when instantaneity shatters the human spirit. Artillery trauma had existed since 1914, but time on target produced a new and more devastating form. German medical records from 1944 to 45 describe soldiers who had endured multi-hour Soviet barrages on the Eastern Front collapsing after just 1 or 2 TOT missions. The reason was simple: traditional bombardments gave the brain time to adapt. Soldiers heard the distant muzzle flashes, counted the seconds, dove for cover, braced for the rhythm. They developed coping mechanisms, anticipation, preparation, even fatalistic humor. Time on target removed every one of those mechanisms. There was no distant rumble, no crescendo, no first shell to signal danger. Only silence, then instant, total hell. The brain had no transition. No time to flood with adrenaline, no opportunity to switch into survival mode. Survivors described a moment of pure, animal incomprehension followed by either paralysis or blind panic. Field hospitals began recording symptoms never seen before in such numbers: sudden noise-triggered catatonia, inability to tolerate even the sound of synchronized clocks, deep phobic reactions to anything that felt perfectly timed. Unlike classic shell shock, which often improved with rest far from the front, these cases proved stubbornly persistent. Some men never fully recovered. Nail 10. The final verdict: systems triumph over soldiers. Let us be brutally clear about what really defeated the German army in the West. It was not superior courage. German soldiers fought with the same tenacity as their fathers in 1918. It was not better tanks. Panthers and Tigers frequently outclassed Shermans in direct combat. It was not greater tactical genius. The Wehrmacht's doctrines remained superior on paper until the end. What defeated them was a system. A system that could manufacture millions of identical shells, train thousands of specialists to identical standards, lay thousands of miles of wire, maintain redundant radio nets, compute thousands of ballistic solutions in minutes, move tens of thousands of tons of ammunition from beach to battery every day, and deliver that ammunition with mathematical precision.